cats are making their way toward the center of the city. This, of course, is why their forces are in greater concentration toward the center. That also means that due to the increasingly dense rate of traffic, more and more of them are killed on the roads as they approach the citadel. The roads in the absolute center of the city, around the citadel, are, of course, impossible for the habitation of cats during almost all the hours of the day and night. There is a tradition that long ago the cats ruled the world but abdicated from the responsibility in favor of the clever little monkeys who at the time were afraid to come out of the trees because of the dominance of the cats on the ground. It's said that the cats by chance encountered each other one day at a waterhole, were astounded when they looked around and saw one another assemble in one fierce mass in that great blaze of golden and green eyes. There had never been a meeting of all the cats before. It was a meeting that decided at this first meeting that the idea of organizing a second meeting of all the cats was far too much trouble. Worried, in case another such chance encounter should force upon them the necessity of making decisions and plans, they decided to abdicate the rule of the world in favor of the monkeys, who were not so lazy or so stubbornly independent. As one cat pointed out, monkeys were not too proud to organize or even enslave each other into groups for building and settling and generally running things, and hence were better suited to all such monkey-like purposes. Monkeys even like to lead and follow and imitate each other. The cats decided that rather than give themselves such trouble, they would let the monkeys organize the world and live off the monkeys' efforts if they could. The Egyptians, whose pyramids are said to develop concentrations of forces we do not pretend to understand, and who one would imagine knew a trick or two, worshipped the cats. It was clear to the Egyptians that the cats were deities who were too proud to speak to mere human beings. This tradition was so firmly established that no Egyptian ever expressed wonder at the perpetually knowing silence of the cat, except of course when confronted by another cat. In those days the cats were bigger, no doubt because they were still accorded the proper dietary due, and the dogs of the time were small and would not dream of competing on equal terms with cats. In those days the dogs were not a problem to the cats. There were consequently in those days few situations which a cat could not handle without breaking down in supercilious dignity. The dogs then as now reflected the souls of their human masters so thoroughly that at the time of the Egyptians, even the dogs accorded the cats the proper degree of reverence. The cats themselves believed firmly that they lived in the center of the city, that it allowed the monkeys to make the world. On an immense plain of flat sand, decorated with the great pyramids, the cats patrolled the endless corridors and secret chambers of power curiously. But in the end, they were unimpressed. They began to desert the city, uttering peculiar cries to each other that horrified the Egyptians, who had no way of understanding what was happening. The Egyptians were so demoralized by this exodus of cats that they immediately let themselves be conquered by the Greeks, who were far too logical to worship beings who wouldn't chop logic with them. Of course, there were a lot fewer cats by the time the Greeks got to Egypt. Most of them had gone traveling. A little like the Jews were to do, many centuries later, the cats became the wanderers of the world, breeding, fighting, fornicating, and thinking, if they ever thought, only of the day when they would receive the call to retake the citadel. Most of the cats, of course, lived in vague dread that this troublesome event would take place in their own idyllically carefree lifetime. But for hundreds of generations, this fear, the memory of which was the only restraining element in a feline existence, the equivalent of a cat's conscience for thousands of years, this fear, while ever present, was never realized. Now the cats are moving toward the center. The trouble is that the roads around the citadel are terribly busy, and the corpses of the cats lie thick in the gutters for the puzzled street cleaners to remove. It could be said that the cats were horribly seeking death like lemmings, except that they seem to express no wish to be run over by the traffic and are in fact careful to avoid as many as possible the terrible risks. Clearly, the cats want to live, but above all they insist on their right to make their way into the heart of the city. The traffic on the roads around the citadel makes the district impossible for the habitation of cats during almost all the hours of the day and night. Those are the cats that manage to stay alive for a little while before the traffic takes its inevitable toll are said to have an expectant expression in their remarkable green and golden eyes and an indefinable air that suggests they're waiting with an infinite patience and a no less infinite certainty for something serious to happen to the monkeys. Thank you, Hoffman. Give the music now. I'm Richard Deakin. This is Limp's Rebel Night. I decided to kick it off with that little parable because cats obviously are rebels and you guys are cats, so you wouldn't be here tonight. The monkeys are outside, the dogs outside. Let's have a good time.